Kang the Conqueror should be the villain of the next Avengers movie, and I'll explain why. Welcome back to ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy, and in the entirety of the multiverse saga, I don't think any character was abused worse than Kang the Conqueror. This guy is one of the all-time greatest Avengers villains of all time, and the MCU had him losing to ants. Now, I'm not so sure if we will ever see one of the greatest Marvel villains of all time face off against the Avengers in a film. Now, I should clarify that when I'm talking about Kang the Conqueror coming back, I don't necessarily mean Jonathan Majors. In fact, I think it would be an upgrade to recast him with, say, Denzel Washington or John David Washington. So I'm going to explain what went wrong with the MCU's plans for Kang and then offer up an alternative idea for how Kang should have been introduced into the franchise. But we're also going to talk about how he could still be the main villain of Phase 7 and how a Kang Avengers movie is the perfect setup for the MCU's mutant saga. First, let me offer up a little background on Kang the Conqueror. He's always been one of my favorite villains in the comics because he is primarily a time traveler and I love time travel stories. In terms of Avengers villains who just face off with only the Avengers, not counting like Dr. Doom or Thanos, Kang always ranks in the top 3 with Ultron and Baron Zemo's Masters of Evil. In his first appearance, he was a mustache-twirling villain with one goal: to conquer time. He's from the 31st century where mankind has built a utopia, but he gets bored, steals Dr. Doom's time machine, and starts to conquer various times and places throughout history. But the character evolved to have more nuance over time. He fell in love with Ravonna Renslayer, who died in his arms. The irony being that he couldn't save her even with his mastery over time. Years later, they added in the idea that Kang is always in conflict with himself. Time-traveling characters Rama Tut and Immortus were retconned to be past and future versions of Kang, which actually led to a weird moment where Mantis married Tony Dalton's character the Swordsman and Kang was conducting the ceremony. Some highlights from his story include the Kang Dynasty saga from 2001, which spanned 14 issues of the Avengers. In this story, Kang actually wins and conquers Earth. Then the Council of Kangs we saw in Quantumania was introduced way back in Avengers 267, where Kang murders all of his alternate selves. But I think the definitive Kang story, the one I wish they could have adapted, is 2021's Kang the Conqueror, Only Myself Left to Conquer by Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing. In this retelling of his origin story, Kang encounters his teenage self when he discovers the time machine and proceeds to train him to become, well, him. We see Kang fall in love and then lose his love across many different time periods. He is filled with good intentions but becomes a warlord, even fighting in a war between Rama Tut and Apocalypse in ancient Egypt. Now the comic ends in a full circle moment. Kang arrives in the past, ready to guide and teach his younger self. And part of this story includes the years where teenage Kang was also a superhero called Iron Lad. He traveled to the modern era and became a founding member of the Young Avengers. Now in the comics, Kang's stories are primarily about time travel and not the multiverse. There was even the huge series Avengers Forever, where variant Avengers team up to fight Immortus, but for the most part, Marvel does not do big multiversal stories that often. Kang is primarily a time traveler, and he's already beaten the Avengers, and if he loses, he'll just go back and try it again. And his appearance in the MCU for me was frustrating because they nailed so much about what makes the character great: his confidence.
But you thought you could win.
His brutality. And the power that he seems to exude over everyone. But I think the multiverse saga went wrong when they tried to make Kang into the big, overarching villain of the saga, instead of keeping him micro-focused on being the villain of one great Avengers movie. So let's talk about where Marvel went wrong with Kang and what their original plans were for the character. Actually, let me ask Colton what he thinks about this. Hey, Colton?
Hello?
Yeah, was Kang much of a multiverse guy in the Hold on, what are you holding?
It's my phone. Can we make this quick? I'm gonna run out of minutes.
Out of minutes? What kind of phone service do you have?
I use it to play Snake.
Dude, you gotta upgrade to Mint Mobile. They're the sponsor of this video. We have been using Mint Mobile for years. It is a great service. We've never had an outage. This is the nation's largest 5G network. Now, all plans include unlimited talk and text, but get this was a seller for me because I travel a lot. Hotspot is included, 20 gigabytes on unlimited plans. But most importantly, it is incredibly easy to add data. I just use an eSIM, so I don't have to go to a store, wait in line, or even get a new phone. It is incredibly easy to switch to Mint Mobile. You can do it right now with an eSIM while you're watching this video, and you get to keep your phone number. Mint Mobile lets you choose the plan that's right for you so you don't overpay. And right now, for a limited time, Mint Mobile is offering 50% off their unlimited wireless plans. Viewers can lock in their lowest price ever, just $15 a month for a 3, 6, or 12-month plan. But best of of all, it is incredibly affordable. I could not believe how much we were overpaying. But Mint Mobile offers premium wireless without that premium price tag. So stop letting your wireless bill break your bank. Get this new customer offer and pay just $15 a month for a 3, 6, or 12-month plan. That is 50% off an unlimited wireless plan at mintmobile.com/ScreenCrush. That's mintmobile.com/ScreenCrush, or click our link below. Now, this is a limited time offer. An upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for a 12-month plan is required. That's the equivalent of $15 a month. Taxes and fees are extra, and this is the initial term plan only. Over 50 gigabytes may slow when the network is busy. Capable devices are also required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com.
Aw, sweet. I'll get an eSIM and get started today.
Oh, you will not regret it. Now, back to what I was saying. Now, I actually like a lot of what Marvel was doing with Kang the Conqueror in the Multiverse Saga. The series Loki did a great job paving the way for He Who Remains and the Multiverse of War and the inevitable destruction of the multiverse. Jonathan Majors brought sadness to the character, and we felt like this man had truly tried everything and had spent eternity knowing that he was a failure.
I've gone through every scenario. This is the only way. The TVA, it works.
This is a guy who essentially sentenced himself to eternal prison just to keep the multiverse safe. That's a compelling villain. And in Quantumania, we saw a villain with those same kind intentions that was masking his inner ferocity.
I am Kang!
But then, beat my ants. We always wondered, why did Marvel let their big bad get defeated by such a minor hero? Well, according to leaker Daniel RPK, Marvel's original plan for this guy was not to be the Kang the Conqueror. Kang Dynasty would have seen the Avengers going up against multiple variants of Kang that were set up after Quantumania. Frankly, that idea is a tough sell. If we want to get invested in Kang as a character, then he needs to be a character, not an army of characters. This is why Thanos is a better villain than Ultron. Thanos was a real person with a heartfelt desire to do good. Ultron was an army of robots, and frankly, I still have trouble understanding his motivations. I imagine the screenplay for this concept was really hard to crack. How do you make the audience care about an infinite number of Kangs? Like that scene in Quantumania where Scott splits off, you don't care about the infinite Scotts because they're just copies of the original that you do care about. So Marvel squandered Kang the Conqueror. Yes, he should have defeated Ant-Man and escaped the quantum realm, and then his war with the Council of Kangs probably should have decimated reality. But hey, that's all in the past. Now let's talk about what could have worked better and how Kang could still be a major villain in Phase 7 of the MCU. My what-if scenario here is simple. Imagine that Kang, as a time-traveling villain, was the villain of an Avengers film that capped off Phase 4 of the Multiverse Saga. Now, I have mentioned this several times on this channel, but this saga really needed Avengers movies to cap off its phases. Those team-up films gave us the feeling that we were always building towards something, and it gave everyone a reason to watch everything because they didn't want to feel left out. The Phase 4 Avengers would have been living in the shadow of the OG team that just saved the universe. In fact, that was the theme of a lot of Phase 4 projects, dealing with the events of Endgame and wrestling with the weight of these new responsibilities and the legacy of the original team. So in Endgame, the Avengers created time travel, and Tony Stark even says,
"You mess with time, it tends to mess back."
The Avengers disrupted the natural order by tampering with the fabric of time. So Avengers 4 should have shown the repercussions of that decision, and the new team then has to clean up the mess of the old team. So imagine we went with a comic-accurate version of Kang, a time traveler from the future, except now it's a descendant of Tony Stark who finds his ancestors' time machine, which means that Tony Stark literally created the villain that we're fighting in this movie.
This could have been avoided if you hadn't played with something you don't understand.
And Tony's descendant, Kang, has all of Tony's worst traits. His ego, his narcissism, his need for control. Except that in the future, everything, all the technology is so advanced that you never really have people in your lives to love or challenge you. And this is how, unlike Tony Stark, Kang never made a connection with a human being that kept him from indulging in his worst impulses. And let's just say that he accesses Tony's database because, I don't know, he's got access to his genetic code. So now we've set up a Sins of the Father storyline where the new Avengers have to prove that they are better than the team that came before. And as long as I'm writing down fanfic, it would be great if Rhodey's Armor Wars project
What's Armor Wars?
was far enough along that he was already dealing with the fallout from Tony's machinery falling into the wrong hands. But you know, we can't go back in time. However, Kang still could be the villain of Phase 7, and here's how. Now, Secret Wars is probably going to end with a soft reset of this universe. Stories will be simplified, and there won't be a multiverse. So this means that Kang, if he's still around, can be reimagined as a villain whose main focus is time travel and mastery mastering time. He wants to conquer the past, present, and future. And in the previous version of the MCU, you cannot actually change the past. Making changes only resulted in a diverging timeline. But post-multiverse saga, Kang's tech could allow him to travel through time and actually alter past events. See, I think that time travel stories offer richer storytelling opportunities than the multiverse. The point of an infinite multiverse is that everything is inherently pointless. There's an infinite amount of everyone, so character deaths mean nothing. But time travel stories connect to our curiosity about the past and our fears and hopes for the future. Time is the one aspect of our lives that we can never truly control, and time should be the enemy of the Avengers. So let me walk you through some possible scenarios of what we could see happen in a Kang-led Avengers time travel film. We could open with the Avengers forming a new team, but then Kang shows up and kills half of them. So the remaining team would have to use time travel to stop Kang before he can become Kang. This is kind of like the snap in Infinity War, but it happens at the start of the movie. But then maybe another time traveler shows up to rescue the Avengers and tell them what's going on. This time traveler, in an Iron Man suit, says that he's from the future and explains Kang and how he's attacking all of time at once. This time traveler would be Iron Lad, Kang's younger self, and he could be their guide in this movie. Now in the comics, he joined the Young Avengers, but here he can show up to help the team understand what's going on. And he gives them a mission: use my time travel tech to stop Kang's invasion at various points in the timeline. And he tells them that Kang has one weakness: he has to ensure that his own timeline will still occur. So he cannot harm or kill any of his ancestors, which is why he did not attack the OG Avengers. Tony Stark has to live long enough to have a daughter and invent time travel. Now the fact that the main hero is Kang's future self could be a big twist later in the movie as we watch this young hero slowly make decisions and compromises that will turn him into Kang the Conqueror. Or maybe we skip all that and maybe White Vision can gather the new team together to stop Kang. He's analyzed all the probabilities and figures out that there is a problem in the time stream. After all, he's not just a computer, he's powered by Infinity Stone energy and the abilities of all the stones are connected. So this would mean that the team could be random heroes that the Vision has gathered together because probabilities determine who's going to be the most useful. Now regardless of how they get together, here's a few team members that I think would be fun to include in this what if scenario. Sam Wilson. He didn't get to time travel in the last movie, and maybe he can go back in time and meet Isaiah Bradley when he was in his prime. Shang-Chi has this connection to the ancient world, and he has the 10 rings. Maybe Kang actually left those rings in the past after the Avengers defeated him in that time period. Then maybe Shang-Chi is left with a dilemma. Does he allow the rings to stay in the past and create the monster that his father became, or does he let history unfold? We're going to see another character face a similar dilemma at the end of the movie. Kang also took on the identity of Rama-Tut and conquered ancient Egypt, so Moon Knight would be a great addition. He is the avatar of the Egyptian god Khonshu and would be useful in the past when Khonshu's forces are fighting against Rama-Tut. And maybe, the same thing happens. Some of Kang's tech gets left behind, and then that tech is adopted by a young N'Saba Noor who becomes the mutant villain Apocalypse. Shuri also fits into this plotline perfectly. As Black Panther, she has a spiritual connection to her ancestors, and we could see the glory of Wakanda in the past. Or maybe we see how Wakanda in the future breaks bad and conquers the planet. Because the real fun here isn't just traveling to the past, it's going to the future. Marvel Comics have invented all sorts of messed up dystopian futures where the world is being ruled by despots. Like a future where the villain wins. We saw this in stories like Age of Ultron, where he conquered the world. Or on the DC side, there's the excellent story Rock of Ages, where the Justice League travels to a future where Darkseid conquered the Earth. They could go 1,000 years in the future and Thor is still there looking the same. They could also introduce Maestro. This is an older version of the Hulk that is super smart and is turned into a villain.
And it was a really angry green man.
He's actually, I think, the greatest Hulk villain because he shows that the Hulk's anger and brutality actually comes from Bruce Banner. Or they could just go 40 years into the future and team up with older, grizzled versions of themselves. We saw this, for instance, in the show Legends of Tomorrow, where they team up with a grizzled, one-armed Oliver Queen. Or they could do a proper Old Man Logan, visit a future where Kang has killed all the superheroes, but an elderly Wolverine is still alive and kicking.
They're gonna make him do this till he's 90.
And maybe this could be where they introduce the Blade Runner-esque Dystopia 2099 universe. And of course, all this time traveling would also work as a kind of backdoor pilot for the X-Men franchise. I already mentioned that their visit to ancient Egypt could give the mutant Apocalypse the advanced technology he needs to become a threat across the millennia. In the comics, he finds a crashed alien ship, and in the movie, it could be Kang's gear. There's also the dystopian X-Men futures, and there are several of them. there's most famously Days of Future Past, where humans have enslaved and wiped out the mutant race. There's also the distant future where apocalypse rules the world. We could introduce mutants in these storylines so we know, hey, here's how the mutant story ends. That way, when the X-Men become a team in the present day, we know that, hey, your time has an expiration date. We know what the mutants are fighting for and that they're fighting against their own extinction. Now, I know that we already did a time travel film with Avengers Endgame, but that movie was mostly a victory lap for the MCU that gave us a medley of the franchise's greatest hits. What I'm talking about here is a true time travel film where the heroes are forced out of their comfort zones. In each case, the heroes would be focused on the same internal journey, legacy. Each of them is struggling with the weight of what came before. They begin the movie trying to live up to the legacy of the old Avengers. Young Kang is also trying to fix his own legacy before he can become a villain. And at the end, each of them learns that legacy doesn't matter. You just have to do your best in the present day. And the finale of the film could be Iron Lad's transformation into Kang. Maybe he makes a decision to kill his future self, or to wipe out a city to kill his future self. And then the heroes have to talk down their new friend and remind him that he gets to choose his own legacy and not be defined by the older generation. And of course, this lesson resonates with all of the team members. Shuri has been haunted by the deaths of her family and living up to the legacy of T'Challa. Sam has been trying to live up to Steve. Shang-Chi is haunted by the violent legacy of his father. Moon Knight is haunted by the lives he's taken in service of Khonshu and all the other avatars that came before. And Yelena Belova is filled with regret over her time as an assassin. So this would make the climax have more of an emotional punch than, say, Age of Ultron, where the heroes did not really have character flaws to overcome in the final act. It was a punchy robot movie. Using Kang in a time travel story would allow these heroes, and hopefully the audience, to move on from the past of the MCU and to look forward into a brighter tomorrow. But guys, that's just my thoughts on Kang and if he should come back. Do you think Kang the Conqueror is wasted, or were they better off ditching him to begin with? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, or you can find us on Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, or subscribe to me on Substack. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.